Seat podcast, a podcast designed to fill your passenger seat with chat about classic cars, all recorded from my 1968 Morris Minor Peggy. I'm Becca, and today I'm on my way to work on the Tuesday following the NEC at the weekend. I was unable to go to work yesterday because I think I caught something whilst at the NEC. Thankfully, according to the lateral flows, it's not COVID, but my throat, my head, everything was absolutely awful yesterday. So I had to spend the entire day in bed in the hope that I would be better for today when I actually had some teaching on. My quirk of classic car ownership for you today is how we actually sometimes find it easier to big up other people's cars. There was quite a few times over the weekend while I was on the young members stand by myself because of various reasons, and it meant that I was having to kind of talk to people and try and entice them into conversations and things, and I found that a lot easier when they were looking at for example, Yean's Patch and Titch, or Rosie's Bumble, or Liam's Mavis than I did when it was them having a nosy at Peggy. It's very easy to big up someone else's car and say how wonderful it is, but if they're looking at your own, you're kind of like, oh, thanks for looking at my car. So that was an interesting experience. But I think other people kind of felt the same way. It was nice to see other people looking at your car, but you found it kind of difficult to talk to them about it. So, as you've probably guessed, today's episode is my NEC show report. I was really fortunate that my first ever time at the NEC was with Peggy on the young members stand. I've never been before, so it was a really interesting experience to see it from behind the scenes as well as what was happening as we were going through during my first experience. So I'll go through kind of how it all worked for us, and obviously include, if you're watching on the YouTube channel, some of the footage and things that I picked up over the weekend where appropriate. So I hope you enjoy. Now the show for the public is open Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So obviously all the setup and things have to happen in the week beforehand. I know some people were dropping their cars off as early as Wednesday, but being my daily driver, I had to leave it quite late to take Peggy there. On top of that, I was at work on the Thursday, so Peggy came to work with me on the Thursday, and after work, having finished kind of a little bit early, thanks to my students being quite interested in cars and being happy to take their lesson a little bit earlier that day so that they could also go home a little bit early, I picked Jamie, my partner, up. The car was already loaded up, so it was literally just a case of picking him up, and then we started our journey over to the NEC. It was a reasonably pleasant journey. No real kind of traffic issues or anything, which was quite nice, considering that we set off at about 4:30, so I thought we were going to hit at least some traffic issues or anything like that, but in reality we were alright, and we managed to get to the NEC for about 6:30, which was quite good. The rest of the guys who were on the stand admittedly had managed to get the Thursday and Friday off, so they had been there all day doing a lot of the hard work, setting up the stand, putting all our banners and things up, and had parked their cars. So really when I got there at 6:30, I kind of had the easy job of easy. It took a few attempts getting Peggy parked up exactly where we wanted her on the stand, and then giving her a little bit of a rub over to get rid of some of this week's muck and dust from being out on the road. I had given her a big wash on the Sunday and got rid of the worst of it, but I carried on using her because I couldn't resist not. of us hadn't seen each other for a really long while because the NEC is so late in the season, so it was nice to have that get together. Now, Friday I actually had to go to work. I couldn't get the day off, so I got up really early, got the train back to Peterborough from Birmingham to be able to go and do what I needed to do at work. Meanwhile, everyone else had a lovely day at the NEC by the sounds of it. The Friday is one of the quieter days, so it can be quite a nice day to go around and have a look. So hopefully in future I'll be able to work something out that means I can go on the Friday. But whilst I was kind of there, I was getting messages from Jamie about kind of things he'd spotted, people he'd spotted, which was quite nice. It gave me lots of things to look forward to when I was there. On top of that, I had the joy of getting a message saying that Liam, who was not there with the car, Liam Murphy, who you've seen on here before, who has S2Ep2 Adventures on YouTube, had actually been nominated for an award at the Classic and Sports Car Club Awards that was on the Friday evening, and that we'd all got kind of the opportunity to go along as well for some free food, some free drinks, and to see if Liam had won. So it meant that when I got back in the evening from work, I had a little bit of time to kind of rest a bit and get changed before heading over to the NEC to meet up with everyone who had been there all day. I got to see a little bit of the kind of show after hours. I was literally walking in as everybody else was walking out on that Friday. So I got to have a little nosy at a few stalls and things, and really got very excited as we were walking over to the TR youth stand actually to meet up with everyone. So we wandered over to there, met up with everyone, got ourselves sorted, and then headed up to the NEC Gallery restaurant to meet up with everyone up there, have a few drinks before we were allowed to go in to the event. The event kind of started off, and I think we actually got to hear some awards before the food and everything arrived, so that was quite good, because Liam's award that he was up for, the Digital Media one, was actually one of the first, well, I think it was actually the first award to go. So after that, he was able to kind of relax and stop worrying, because he won. So we were really proud of him. I got to film him kind of running up to collect the award, and it was definitely a well-deserved reward. And I say it every time I mention it, but you definitely need to check it out, because he's also going to do an episode from the NEC, I believe, because his S2Ep2 that he's got on the loan project is there as well. So we had a really nice time. We got some food, had a few drinks, and enjoyed the evening there. It was just really nice to have something to celebrate, and a nice kind of start for me to the weekend, having been to work and things. So we then kind of went back to our Airbnb, had a bit of a chat and stuff downstairs, before heading up to our rooms again quite late. And I think the continuous late nights is possibly why I was so susceptible to catching whatever it is that I've caught. Saturday I was really excited to get to the show, so despite having a late night, was there first thing. Myself and Jamie were supposed to be on the stand first thing in the morning, but because of Jamie's job, he got an on-call request very first thing in the morning. He was literally just about to get in the shower and then had to answer an on-call thing for his work, so it ended up being me, Yayan and Tasha who went in, but Yayan and Tasha weren't down for the stall at all on Saturday. So they kind of went off to have a nice wander around all the shops and things, and I was on the stall for most of that morning kind of by myself, which gave me an opportunity to talk to lots of lovely people who came up and spoke to me, and that opportunity to kind of big up a lot of other people's cars as well, which was really nice. And it really flew by as well, and it wasn't long before everyone had got themselves out of the Airbnb and was also there enjoying the show. So once everyone was there, I got myself sorted, and then me and Jamie went for a bit of a wander. There was a few people that I knew were at the show that I really wanted to go and say hello to. One of those was actually the Singer Owners Club, who were over in Hall 3. Got some family friends and things who were on the stall, or their cars were on the stall, so it was really nice to go over and see them, especially as there wasn't a national with the Singer Owners Club this year. So we got to see a lot of our local friends at the mini one at Grimsthorpe that we went to in Peggy, but we didn't get to kind of see everybody, so it was nice to catch up with a few people over there. And our friend Nigel Hughes actually had his Singer Vogue Arrow series, and for those of you who don't know, it was one of those that I came home from hospital in when I was born, and I'm actually in the process of trying to track down the car, that particular car. AGO 898G is the number plate. I did a podcast quite early on in series 1 about the selling of that particular car, which Nigel was involved with, and we had a little sit in his, and really it's very different, very spacious, and so it seems like a suitably different 60s car for us to consider if we do manage to track down AGO, kind of putting our name to being interested in eventually owning one day, because that would be quite a nice full circle. But his example is absolutely beautiful, only 15,000 miles on the clock, and just in absolutely gorgeous condition. So we were a little bit spoiled when we were sat in there having some photos and things taken, but absolutely stunning. I got to sit also in the oldest Singer that was there as well, a 1919 Singer, who I was kind of part of the birthday celebrations for a couple of years back, and quite a different experience sitting in that. There's no speedo in it, just a clock to let you know if you're late for your various meals that you need to be at, but a very interesting car nonetheless. So that was kind of us heading over there. We then wandered around the rest of Hall 3, had a lovely time. There were so many beautiful cars in Hall 3. Hall 3 being another one of the halls that was kind of very much club stands. And another stand that really caught our eye there was, I believe, the Panther Stand, that had done a massive Disney themed stand because they had their DeVille there. So they had a load of Cruella, the latest Disney movie in the kind of 101 Dalmatians theme. They had all of that kind of themed up there, which was really interesting. But yeah, really nice time wandering around on the Saturday. We did, I think, Hall 3 and a little bit of Hall 2, and then went back towards Hall 5. Hall 5 being where I kind of had a little bit of a sneak peek at before the event on the Friday night. So Hall 5 was really nice. Again, primarily club stands, which I think most people agree are the most exciting and interesting part of the show, because you have such variety, and the choices that these clubs kind of make as to what goes makes for such an interesting collection of cars to see. So really enjoyed those halls, and we managed to see quite a lot of them, to be honest, on that Saturday afternoon. But we got kind of quite tired quite quickly, so did keep hopping back to the stands to have a little bit of a sit, to get a cup of tea, and to kind of catch up if anybody else had spotted something particularly interesting. I did also on the Saturday go over and see the YouTubers stand. Said hello to Steph from iDriver Classic, saw how she was doing. Also got to kind of meet Matt from Furious Driving and Ian from Hubnut for the first time. And Ian was kind enough to let me sit in Tuck, which was very exciting. So that was another thing that I'd kind of ticked off my I want to do list on the Saturday. Another thing on our to-do list that we ticked off on the Saturday was actually going over to the Austin 7 stand, because Liam had organised to have a telly playing in the background with all of his Austin 7 adventures going kind of on loop. And so we went over there and kind of hung around for a little bit in the area, had a look at some of the cars around it, to film ourselves being shown on film on the stand, because the episode that I was in was also going to be on that loop. So that was a little bit of fun, and amazingly the guys that were on that stand were not at all bored of it and were really excited to kind of stand there and watch with us as we waited for us to kind of pop up on the screen. So we then headed back to the stand, and a lot of the young clubs, so TR Youth, there was another group that I can't remember the name of, and the Morris Minor Owners Club young members had booked to go to the Beer Keller in Birmingham to see the umpire band in the evening and kind of have a little bit of a young clubs outing. So we all kind of got on the train, headed into central Birmingham for the one stop, and then walked to the Beer Keller via picking up some food, which was going to be much needed, because everything that the Beer Keller serves is in huge great steins. So we needed some food, especially as a lot of us hadn't eaten a lot that day, to kind of soak up some of the drink. It was a really lovely night. We had a lot of fun. The guys that we were with were a lot of fun, but I think some of us were really starting to flag and be tired, so we headed back, a few of us back to the Airbnb, leaving a few others there a little bit earlier than the end of the show, just because we were so exhausted. Sunday morning, my dad was coming to the event, and he wanted to make the most out of his ticket for the event, so wanted to get there for opening, and we had to kind of meet up with him to make sure that he could get in and everything. So he came to the Airbnb quite early. I think it was like 8 o'clock on the Sunday morning, which, considering some of us had stayed up, even though we'd gone back early to the Airbnb, we'd stayed up until midnight watching Hubnut videos to see if we could spot ourselves in his show reports. Was quite early, but we kind of packed all our stuff, because obviously we weren't in the Airbnb another night. Packed all our stuff into his car to get it back to the NEC, and then headed over with him. So we were at the show from kind of about 20 past 8, which is when we actually managed to spot Matt from Furious Driving doing some of his desperate filming first thing in the morning, because those guys were really struggling to get any filming done during the day, because they couldn't really get off of their stands. So we had a nice kind of time chatting with my dad and things, and then the show started, and so he was off, and he kept coming back to the stand with various bits and pieces that he'd managed to find throughout the day, to drop them back off at Peggy so that he could go back off with his hands free. We weren't on the stand officially until the afternoon, so once the other guys had turned up a little bit later, because we managed to kind of beat them there, we were free to kind of go and do what we wanted to do. So we went straight over to kind of Hall 1 in search of some food on the way. Had a bit of food over in Hall 1 actually, and because we were really hungry by this point. And then we had a look round Hall 1, which is all very impressive, expensive, shiny stuff. And it's actually kind of, there were some really interesting cars, including an absolutely beautiful Morris Marina on the Maguire stand. And the car of the show officially from the Club Awards on the Friday night was in Hall 1. So we made sure to see that as well. It was a really interesting and beautiful car. It was a 1934 Mercedes-Benz, and very interesting little car, and a gorgeous little colour scheme as well. So we enjoyed seeing that. We had a bit of a better look at Hall 2 as we wandered through that as well, because we'd only kind of very briefly looked at it. Spotted a few more things in Hall 3 as we headed back to our hall, and then we went over to Hall 8, which was kind of through a little bit of a cut through, which was primarily Fords in there, but there was some interesting little Fords to have a look at, and including one that was a flatbed that had some scale electrics built up on the back of it, which was very interesting. I managed to pick up a few extra things throughout the day on this day. So I picked up, alongside my merch from Steph and Ian that I picked up on the Saturday, I got a few little leaflet and booklet things that were period Morris and also Singer Vogue from a few of the auto jumbles. We haven't really had much of a look through the auto jumbles on the Saturday, but luckily there were still a few bargains to be had by all of us on the Sunday. Now from about 4 o'clock onwards, I think I'd probably absolutely exhausted myself, to be honest, and was looking forward to having a little bit of a sit on the stand. So we sat on the stand, had a nice chat with everyone on the stand, and exchanged kind of what we'd managed to purchase and things at the show. But in reality, we were all sat there waiting for what we affectionately named BP time. Because those of you who haven't been to the show before, or perhaps haven't watched a video on the NEC before, at 5 o'clock when they make the announcement on the Sunday that the show is now officially over, everybody beeps their horns to kind of cover the announcement, I guess, in excitement that they don't want the show to be over. It is, unfortunately, but it is quite an exciting time to kind of be beeping our horns. So we were all from about 10 to 5 anxiously hovering around our cars to beep our horns at the end of the show, counting down to that beepy time. And it was just as exciting as I think I'd hoped it would be. Unfortunately, Mavis's horn had decided it wasn't going to partake, and so some of the footage that I'm going to insert at the end of this podcast so that you can hear the cacophony of beeps does include poor Liam desperately trying to poke his horn into some sort of life at the end of the show. It was after said beepy time that there wasn't much left to do other than tidy up our stand, pack it all away, and it's amazing how quickly the hall descends into kind of breaking everything down, popping it away and everything following the event, especially considering how long it took people to set the show up beforehand. And then we packed ourselves away pretty quickly, and then as soon as there was kind of a clear way for us to exit, we were free to leave. And it was almost like up until beepy time I had been running on some sort of mad adrenaline that meant that the minute it was over, my throat really started to hurt, and the entire drive home I was in a little bit of pain whenever I was swallowing and coughing and things like that. And I was like, oh no, what have I caught here? But it seems like I'm all COVID clear. It's just I've caught what fellow stand member Yayan seemed to have. But even though I was in a bit of pain and everything driving home, it was actually quite a pleasant drive home, because other cars had been leaving the show at a similar sort of time. And so we saw a few other cars as we were out and about. We were overtaken by another Morris owner, and we had the opportunity, which was taken, to overtake a midget as well. So it was nice to kind of see and spot other cars that we'd seen out at the show. I think the Ford that had the Scale Electrics on the back of it also overtook us at one point. But we managed to get home, get some food, and then rest ourselves up a little bit, although I obviously needed a little extra day on top of that to try and get my voice back enough to go back to teaching. It really was such a brilliant, well, it's not really a show, it's an exhibition of clubs, hard work and things like that, as well as stands and things like that. But it was such a wonderful thing to be part of. I had so much fun. It was definitely worth catching whatever it is that I've caught here, because it was just, I've not done anything like that ever before, and I'm not sure I'll do something like that again for a while, just because, you know, a lot of stands try and get different people on there each year, so I suspect I won't be on the stand with Peggy next year, so it will mean that I won't have the excitement of having my own car there to awkwardly try and talk to people about, and so it was really such an exciting time, and I felt really proud for having Peggy on the stand, which was really nice. And I really enjoyed it. There was not a minute, I don't think, where I didn't have a big grin on my face. Even when I was trying to catch a couple of hours sleep at night, I think I went to sleep with a big grin on my face because I was just having so much fun. I was so pleased to be there, and there was just so many cars and so many shiny things, and I was just very, very excited the entire time. So thank you very much for listening to my NEC ramble. I hope you've enjoyed hearing about the sort of things that we got up to. and hopefully, despite my sore throat, you've enjoyed some of the enthusiasm I have about the event. I definitely will be going again in future, even if it's not as a stand exhibitor, because I just really did enjoy the time that I had there, and I can't talk more highly about it, really. So thank you very much for listening. Drive safely and happy motoring.